Welcome into another episode of the Fourth and Goal podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Drew, and back with us this week is Rob, all the way from Africa.
Africa is not a country. I'm coming to you from Lusaka in Zambia, baby. Let's go. It's
I,
approaching midnight here.
I never said it was a country. I want that on the record. I just said you were in Africa in the same sense I'm in North America.
I suppose as a Canadian, you actually know your geography. That was for all the Americans out there that might be a little confused.
Yes, fair enough, fair enough. But we want to get right into it because there's a lot to discuss now that we are 1 week into the NFL season. Before we get into this week's slate of games and what happened, though, I want to talk about some of the big news that happened over the weekend. And the biggest news was last night, Aaron Rodgers tearing his Achilles only 4 or 5 snaps into his first game with the Jets, out for the season. Rob, I don't know if you were able to watch the game at all, but from what you've seen, what are your thoughts?
I was dozing in and out at 3 in the morning or something like that. It was just, I did catch the highlights. Just awful, man. Like, after all the hype of the offseason, then you had the hard knocks. I think everybody was rooting for or against the Jets this year. And to see it all come apart like that, and Rodgers, love him or hate him, you just don't want to see that at this stage of a career in what could have been an incredible season for him. I don't know. It's just a tragedy all around. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I had been selling the New York Jets all offseason. Anyone who's been watching our content knows that I haven't been the biggest New York Jets fan. That being said, this is not the way I saw it going. I wanted Aaron Rodgers to have a chance, and I said Aaron Rodgers could prove me wrong. I did a QB ranking video. I put him at number 9 still. I still think he had a lot of potential, and if he was able to reunite and be back to his MVP form or even close to that, the Jets could have been a really good team. It's really tough to see, but also, like, can he come back from this? An Achilles injury is incredibly hard to come back to when you're in your 20s. He is turning 40 later this year. He is going to be 40, maybe even 41 by the time he could come back from this. And I don't know if if anyone could come back from that serious an injury and still be productive. And just the thought that might have been the end of Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this game. That's probably the biggest tragedy of it all.
I know you're making me sad just talking about it, honestly. My hope is that he goes and sees whatever German doctor with the reindeer antlers play that Kobe Bryant saw late in his career when he tore an Achilles, and that Ray Lewis saw when whatever was afflicting him all of a sudden disappeared for that playoff run. My concern is it's more of the Elton Brand variety, which was early in his career, and he was really never the same after that. As you say, it is a devastating injury. I mean, I don't like this one bit, man. I'm like a little bit of a loss for words just because it really is so tragic. As you said, right? Like you were shorting them. I mean, I'm sure your bets are looking a lot better now. But nobody wants to see him go down like this.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson was like in the middle of some MILF as soon as he heard this, and that ruined his whole season. So I just think that, man, and this is coming from a guy who lost, Big Ben lost to Aaron Rodgers in that Super Bowl a decade or so ago. And so I've always had a little resentment towards him, but nothing like, I mean, you never, ever want to see this. As I said, I was hoping for him to do a Brett Favre, play for the Jets, and then see a couple more years in the Vikings. So I really think, like you said, at 41, coming back, he is a bit of a mobile quarterback. Can he just become a pocket passer? I mean, we got to watch the space, but pour one out for our boy Aaron, or some ayahuasca. This is water, but
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Now, the crazy thing, he wasn't even the only major Achilles injury this weekend. We also saw Ravens featured running back J.K. Dobbins go down for the season. And, he's one of those players. He's a running back. He'll probably never play in the NFL again. It's more likely Rodgers plays because who's going to want to pick up a late 20s running back coming off an Achilles? Like, absolutely gut-wrenching just to see a guy's probably career get ended like that.
Yeah, and I feel like we haven't seen a lot of these Achilles injuries in the last couple of years leading up to this. So the idea that we get two kind of marquee players week one, I mean, I know there's a couple in there that I'm sure you got off the top of your head, but and again, like you said, the running back and Dobbins was hurt last year, right, for most of the year, at least towards down the stretch. So just a killer for him to finally come back and lose it all in game one. Again, I hate the Ravens, but this is never what you want to see. Luckily, they have some depth at running back, and they've always kind of done a running back committee there. At least they were doing that last year because of all the injuries. So hopefully the Ravens, well, I would like the Ravens to miss a beat, but hopefully for the sake of just kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Fate or karma, right? We don't want this to take their season too bad, but. Again, yeah, I mean, what is it with these Achilles? Is it the turf?
Yeah, and that's been a lot of the talking point. I mean, yesterday, David Bakhtiari, left tackle for the Green Bay Packers, put out a tweet basically saying that the NFL and the owners are being irresponsible putting turf in these fields and not putting grass in because it's causing injury. Now, I am not a scientist. I am not an expert on this. I do not know the numbers. I know what the NFLPA has released that they say I think it's 28% more likely to get injuries. I know anecdotally the idea is that grass will eventually give, but turf cannot because there's concrete under it. But at the end of the day, it's a big question. And if guys are going down and guys truly are getting injured from turf issues, I can't imagine a world where NFL owners wouldn't want to fix the playing surface because this is their assets. This is their investment. If you're the Jets owner, the last thing you wanted was for Rodgers to go down. You would spend any amount of money to have him there the whole season.
True. I do have to chuckle though at the owners giving a shit about player safety. Like, yeah, I can think of plenty of reasons why they wouldn't do that, and it's about saving money and making more money, right? So of course they want Aaron Rodgers sticking around, but the NFL owners, let's check yourself a little bit in the fact that they're going to do anything in the world to protect these players because they don't do that when it comes to head injuries. So why would they do that when it comes to knee, arm, leg, Achilles injuries, right? I don't know. Some about MetLife. I mean, you know me. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I still write postcards. I would always prefer grass. Again, out of no scientific reason whatsoever, besides like let's play ball, sandlot, backyard, is always grass, right? Like those of us that grew up playing in the neighborhood, we didn't have access to turf. I do remember the first time I played on turf, and it was weird. Again, I'm nowhere near a stellar athlete, but they have these like little black things that pop up. Like it is just a very weird surface. So yeah, I mean, I would like to see them all go back to the grass, like baseball, right? Baseball, you don't have any turf. You had some AstroTurf for a while, obviously.
You do have some AstroTurf,
but I think
even still.
Yeah, even still. But I don't know. You're right. The cost benefit analysis can't be worth it, right? But does the data support it? As you said, you threw out 28%. That I'd like to see some more research on it, but I'm just so sad. I can't get over it.
yeah. But that's the last news and note, and we do got to quick through this because we are a little bit behind schedule already. But there's a few contracts that we had signed. Last week I talked a bit about the defensive ends, and we had Nick Bosa and Chris Jones ending their holdouts this week. Nick Bosa getting a 5-year deal, becoming the highest paid player for a defensive lineman in the league, highest paid defensive player in the league, and Chris Jones signing a 1-year deal with some incentives to get a bit more. Rob, what are your thoughts on these deals?
Hey, get paid. Get that, secure the paper. I have no problem with these guys. I'm glad to see them playing ball. You have a depoy, Nick Bosa, obviously, so he's going to get that cash. I love these yourself kind of contracts, especially if you don't really have another option that there. So I'm just happy to see these kids back on the field playing. again, I'm not sure if this DN holdout situation is similar to the running backs. Like, are the owners trying to make a play here? But when they give the contract out like that with that much money, you got to think that they value
Yeah.
this position at least a little bit more than the running back holdouts, right?
Yeah, I don't think this is an ownership play. And I honestly don't think the running backs has much of one either. I think it's just teams trying to take the most advantage. And when you have quarterbacks getting paid more and more and more, and you have receivers who are helping quarterbacks getting paid more and more and more, the easiest place to pull money from is the highest paid other position, and that's defensive end. I love the Bosa contract. I think he earned it. I think it's a great deal for him. He did a good job. The Chris Jones makes no sense to me though. The whole reason for the holdout, in my opinion, as I saw it, was to get away from the franchise tag and to get some more money and get away from the franchise tag. He basically got a 1-year contract. Yeah, it's a little bit more money, but it's just recovering the money he already lost from missing training camp and games. And then he's still exposing himself to the same franchise tag he was risking exposure to already. I think it was a way to save face to get back in, but I think Bosa absolutely won on his holdout. Chris Jones lost on his holdout. That's my take. But we got to move on to talk about the week in general.
Yeah, it was either that or the. Sorry, I was just gonna say it was either that or the Levy and Bell nuclear option. So hey, get whatever money you can.
Absolutely.
But go ahead.
So yeah, moving on to the week review. Rob, what were some of your takeaways from week 1 of the NFL season?
Well, dude, the Giants shit in the bed. I think everybody expected them to at least put up a point or two. Especially after the Danny Dimes playoff offseason coach of the year, right? Like that was a shocker to me. Same with the Bengals shit in the bed. That I have them. I'm all in on the Bengals this year. I got Burrow MVP. I got Bengals winning the ship. So to see that out the gate was also a bit of something we didn't want to see. Your Lions sneaking a win is probably the greatest thing to happen in the Detroit football history in the last 25 years. So congratulations there. We have rookie quarterbacks, first round overall picks, still unable to win their first game. Welcome to the NFL, kid. Otherwise, man, football's back, baby. I'm just so hyped. I'm not going to overreact quite yet to some of the more intriguing plot lines, I think, as you'll see from my picks this week, sticking to some of the party lines. But what are you thinking about the week past?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we saw was a lot of teams shaking off the rust. I think for the most part, teams looked worse than expectations, and that's across the board. The Lions won. I don't think the Lions looked 100%, nor did the Chiefs, even with the Chiefs missing Jones and Kelsey. You look at the Bengals, Joe Burrow looked terrible. The Bills, Josh Allen looked terrible. The Ravens, yeah, they won, but Lamar didn't look good. You had a lot of guys not looking good.
The Bills lost that game.
The Bills did lose that game. I mean, and that was Josh Allen lost that game. I have a lot of respect for Josh Allen. I think he's one of the best QBs in the league, and that game didn't change my mind, but it definitely made me start to question it a little bit. And had Burrow balled out,
he has lost games like that in the past.
He has. And had Burrow balled out, I might have been willing to say that was enough to have Burrow leapfrog him in my rankings, because I do have Allen slightly ahead of Burrow, but neither really showed up in that game. A lot of quarterbacks did not have the best game, and so I'm not overreacting to those bad games. Also, apologies to our viewers. Rob obviously having technical difficulties on his camera over there, but I think he's still there audio-wise, and we'll keep moving on with the podcast. My other thoughts, though, the big takeaway I had was the Rams might be a legit contender. I saw an absolutely amazing game from the Rams. Their offense looked legit. Their defense was able to stop what was supposed to be a high-powered offense in Seattle. So I have a lot of faith. I don't know if Rob is still here, but Rob, what were your thoughts on the Rams if you are still here?
I'm here. I can see myself, so apologies if there's something happening to the viewers. We are using some probably shadier internet connection than we would like, but so thank you for your patience there. I'm not too shocked at that outcome of the Rams Seahawks. One, I think the Seahawks outperformed last year. They were probably due for a regression. And the Rams got shafted last year. They had injuries all over the board. Stafford, I think, just took the year off. So they were kind of due for a regression in the other direction, right? And so that's not too much of a surprise. It's a bummer that Cooper Kupp's hurt again, talking about injuries. He's down on the IR. Overall, though, I think that division's still going to be really tough. The Niners looked super impressive against my Steelers. I'd like to chalk up the Steelers being awful, mainly because they're up against what might be the toughest team in the league, and it looks like the GOAT to be Brock Purdy. I'm all in on Brock Purdy. I think he might be the sneaky MVP pick. How do you out Brady Tom Brady? You be the last pick in the draft and then go on to do what I think Brock Purdy might do. So tough division there. The Cardinals, who even knows? Dobbs out there doing some things. So yeah, it's the Rams could be a contender, but they got a lot to compete with.
Yeah. I don't think they're a contender for Super Bowls, but I absolutely think this team can push for the playoffs. They still have Stafford. They'll get Kupp back. Aaron Donald is still one of the best defensive players of all time and still very productive on that team. You still have McVay calling plays. I think that could be a surprise team, a sneaky team that could pull some wins for some good teams and make the playoffs, especially if the Seahawks play like they did. That's a team that a lot of people had making the playoffs from the NFC, and that is not a playoff team with what we saw this past week. Geno Smith looked like the Geno Smith of every year except for last year. Now, the only reason and the only reason we're not overreacting to Geno Smith here is because we saw guys like Joe Burrow play worse. And I don't think we're selling on Joe Burrow yet. That's the only saving grace that a lot of these QBs have after week one is Joe Burrow was the worst. And so if you're better than Joe Burrow, we can't write you off yet.
I don't think Joe Burrow is worse than Danny Dimes.
I think he was. Now that's
I think maybe expectation-wise, I think the Delta, right? Delta for sure, right? Burrow MVP candidate, shitting the bed versus Danny Dimes, like probably got lucky in the playoffs, and so shitting the bed's not that as.
Yeah, I think with Danny Dimes with Danny Dimes, where it came down to the difference to me was one, Danny Dimes was going against a defense we expected to be one of the best defenses in the league. And two, yeah, he threw like a pick six. But like a lot of what it was they were playing with a negative game script. And, Joe Burrow is throwing to Jamar Chase, T. 0 point Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. Danny Dimes is throwing to Darren Waller, Jalen Hyatt, and Isaiah Hodgins. It's a different story.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, my favorite pick six of the day was by the Detroit Lions on that ball that just hit Kadarius Toney right in the fucking hands. Like I saw a meme where it was like, you wouldn't believe it, but this was a pick six, and the ball's like in his hands, wide open across the field, and it's just like there. And he had drops all day. I watched another clip of it was like fuck it Tony Tony highlights, and it was just him dropping balls on his hand all day. So like you said, the rust is there.
Yeah, and I basically, anyone who watched me live streaming that game on our 4th and Goal 101 Twitch account, you saw and you heard me saying all game that Kadarius Toney was the Lions MVP that game, and I stand by that statement. Like, I think a lot of players had good games.
He was the best player on the field for the Lions,
but Kadarius Toney was the most impactful player on the field for the Lions, and I stand by that statement. And hey, I'm happy with the win. One big win there. Get that down. But I think all in all, week one was, for the most part, good football, minus the Sunday Nighter. That was one of the most painful games I watched. I did watch the whole thing because I was streaming it, but wow, was that a terrible game. We've talked a bit about it. Don't want to talk too much about it, but the Cowboys out here putting their name on the league, saying we are ready. We are Super Bowl contenders. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that brings me to my lock of week 2, which is the Dallas Cowboys. They are going up against the Aaron Rodgers-less Jets. I think they made a statement game. Tony Pollard might be the best running back in the league right now. Also making my I made money on him last week, and I had some money on him preseason. I'm all in on T. Paul. Like you said, that defense showed up and showed out. I think 2 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. So hell of a performance by the Dallas Cowboys, and that's my lock of the week for week 2. How
Yeah,
about you looking ahead of the week? What are you
so
thinking?
we're talking about the picks. So I think that's a great way. We're gonna put your picks on the screen right here. As you can see, highlighted in red are the Dallas Cowboys beating the Jets. We got the rest of Rob's picks. Rob, you were 6-10 last week. Tell me how you feel with your picks, because you made a lot of the same picks. You trusted the Giants last week. You're picking them again this week. Panthers, you're back on that wagon. Steelers, back on that wagon. Bears, back on that wagon. A lot of these teams that seem to let you down, you're riding with. Tell me your thought process quickly on these picks.
I'm a tortured soul. Well, first off, I was making picks from the lovely island of Zanzibar, so I'd like to maybe chalk a couple of those up to some umbrella drinks on the beach. But really, what this comes down to is not overreacting to week 1. Again, the Steelers were going up against the toughest team in the league, really, potentially. Now they're at home against the Browns. We own Cleveland. That's just an homer pick, not going to lie there. Again, and a lot of these guys are now facing teams that I'm just not as scared of. The Panthers are playing the Saints at home. You got the Bears on the road, but they're playing the Bucks, which I'm also not scared of. So again, this is more just sticking to the party line for a week or 2, right? Like I'm not trying to panic. I'm not trying to overreact, which is why I'm taking a lot of the road favorites here, but I'm also taking a lot of home underdogs. So I really think that, Texans Colts is a toss up for my mind. Chargers Titans is a toss up. So I'm really trying to stick to what I was thinking heading into week 1, and not overreacting too much, which is kind of where I've settled in week 2. If I go another 6-10, we're blowing it up and we're just throwing some darts next week. But for now, we're going to try to stick to the intuition that we had heading in. Bill Simmons had this where he was like, for the first 4 weeks, you got to stick to what you know and see how it plays out. And so I'm gonna take a little bit of the sports guy with at least week 2, and then we can reconsider. What are your picks looking like?
Yeah, so moving on.
Well, you guys can see his picks, but
yeah, moving on to the screen now is my picks. So a few differences. I went 10-6 last week, which was, I would have liked to do better, but comparing against Vegas, which we'll show in a minute, Vegas only went 8-8 in terms of having the favorite win the game. So at the end of the day, I think what Rob and I's goal is not to go undefeated or in any week or anything like that. Our goal is to beat Vegas, to be able to outpick the Vegas odds. So, 2 games ahead, I will take that. Right. I have a few dogs out here. I have the Cardinals beating the Giants just because I think that the Giants last week didn't love how they looked. The Cardinals put up a really good fight against the football team last week. Josh Dobbs literally didn't know guys' names. One more week in that system. I think the Cardinals might surprise. I'm giving them a little bit of credit here at home. And I think they're going to win 1 game, and why not this one? I agree with you. Chargers and Titans, to me, is a coin flip. The Titans might have had the worst quarterback in the league last week. I did say Joe Burrow was the worst, but he was not the worst. There was one worse, and that was Ryan Tannehill. I am a Ryan Tannehill defender and have been for years. I think that Ryan Tannehill has been a very effective quarterback for the Titans, and I will die on that hill. But he is not that anymore. I am just waiting for the news that Will Levis is starting. I did pick the Titans to have a winning record, and I still think they will. But that's contingent on the Titans giving up on Tannehill and putting Will Levis into the game. The one difference I do have to you, I picked the Bills as my lock of the week. I think that this is probably the easiest game the Bills have all year. They have a very tough schedule. It's at home versus the Raiders. I don't love the Raiders team, and I think Buffalo's going to bounce back against a much weaker defense than that Jets team they played on Monday night.
Wow, you're no faith in Jimmy G. He won't be slaying too much puss in northern state, upstate New York. So maybe he might be focused on the game. I do want to just shout out the Giants, though. I know you're picking the Cardinals. I think this is a classic overreact game, right? I think a lot of people are going to be putting on the Cardinals because of how bad the Giants were last week, and I think this is the perfect example of how they're going to bounce back against a shitty team, get that confidence back, shake the cobwebs. So I'm quite confident. But yeah, the Bills were also I was looking between the Bills or the Cowboys as a lock, but I don't know. There's the Raiders can be frisky sometimes, so I was just a little timid on that. But we'll see. We'll see. I did like the Packers too against the Falcons. I think Jordy Love really showed something last week, and so I was looking at that as a pretty solid lock.
I'm a big fan of Jordan Love and the Packers. I've been calling Jordan Love to be good for a while. Rob and I are in a fantasy league together. Rob, you might have seen a little before game time, I actually picked up Jordan Love in our league because I did not want anyone to be able to pick him up after I thought he was going to ball out against the Bears. And I'm really happy I made that call because I got Jordan Love and Anthony Richardson. I think both look like they're going to be legit. I just got to figure out who to start in fantasy now.
I got Joe Burrow. I should have dropped him for Love.
yeah, yeah. That's rough. That's rough having Joe Burrow. You're really invested in the Bengals this year. But yeah. So right now on the screen, I'm quickly gonna put up the Vegas's picks for week 2. So Vegas did go 8-8 last week, meaning Rob is 2 games behind Vegas. I am 2 games
Typical
ahead of Vegas. A lot of upsets in week 1 is what we're really seeing from this. We had, thinking of some off the top of my head, we had the Lions, we had the Jets, we had the, who are some other ones out there? The Rams was a pretty big upset. So there was a number of upsets. I believe the Packers was an upset over the Bears, which that one surprises me. I didn't think of the Packers pick that I made as an upset. I thought of that as a locked and loaded favorite, especially because I've watched the NFC North for years. The Packers are the Bears' daddies and always have been.
Yeah, exactly.
But
the idea that they're favorites, it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, so moving on, though, we've talked a little bit about our picks, but I want a bit of a preview into week 2. Some of the matchups. What do you think are some of the good matchups? What do you think is going to happen in week 2? What are some of your calls on how some of these week 1 performances either continue or revert to the mean that we expect?
Yeah, I mean, I think the game of the week for me is Bengals-Ravens, right? We got a rematch of that AFC, that wild AFC game that was kind of decided on that last play with the backup. So you got Lamar Jackson hopefully not getting his revenge. Do the Bengals bounce back this week, or are they absolutely garbage? We will find out. I also think a fun game is that Chiefs-Jags. Trevor Lawrence perhaps could be making a statement, and if the Chiefs start 0-2, little Super Bowl hangover, that would be something to watch. There are some boring games, that being said, like Panthers-Saints, Chargers, Titans, Bears, Bucks. I plan on not watching any of those 3 games.
One thing I do want to say about the Saints, actually, I've seen a lot of Saints fans talking about how good their team looks. Were they watching the same game I was? That's all I want to ask. Saints fans, I have been on the Saints this offseason. I like the Saints. I have them winning the division. I have them winning 9 or 10 games this year. I like them. But they beat a Titans team where Ryan Tannehill, I'm not unconfident that I could have done a better job than Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. I think that's within my reasonable range that I could have been better than Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, yes, the other day, and you beat them by 1 point.
Yeah, exactly, which is why I'm actually picking the Panthers over the Saints again. I know the Panthers failed me last week, but I haven't seen anything from the Saints. And Saints, I have a question for you, too. Can we get some more Taysom Hill? Why doesn't he just start for you guys? Run some gadget stuff. Like, I love Taysom Hill. I just want me some more Taysom Hill. If your team's going to be shit anyways, you might as well parade them out a little bit more than you do.
I mean,
So
I'm a Derek
that
Carr
being
fan.
said, I don't think I'm tuning into that game.
Yeah, I'm a Derek Carr fan. But yeah, talking about some of those big games. One, I'm really sad I won't actually be able to watch a lot of these games because I'm traveling on Sunday down to Mexico for work for a week. So I'm going to be not able to watch a lot of this. Heartbreaking. I think I'll catch a bit of the Sunday nighter and I'll be able to watch the Monday nighter probably. Actually, maybe not because I might be doing like some work dinners and then I'll watch the Thursday nighter. But won't be able to watch a lot this week. But speaking to some of the matchups, the Ravens Bengals, I think that's going to be a great matchup. You have the Bengals, I have the Ravens. The Bengals are favored in this game. Absolutely. And so they should be. But I take what you said. The
You're at
AFC,
home.
the playoff game last year, the Bengals were at home going against the Tyler Huntley led Ravens, and that team was able to push the Bengals to the limit. I like to chalk up Joe Burrow's performance to still be carrying that calf injury he had in the preseason. I don't know if he's going to be better, and so a hurt Joe Burrow potentially against a team that almost beat them with a backup quarterback last year. That's why I'm taking the Ravens in this game.
Fair enough. And there's that blood in the water vengeance there. So I think that's the game of the week. I also like the Steelers Browns. I think that's going to be intriguing. Were the Browns like was both of those a fluke, or are they who we thought they are? I really I need to see some Pickett. I need to see the Pickett emergence starting next week against Deshaun Watson and the Browns.
Yeah, I know you want Pickett to be good. I have not been sold on Kenny Pickett. That entire QB class that year. Brock Purdy's come out of nowhere. I think he's legit. I said it in the offseason. I ranked him 14th on my quarterback list for a reason. I trust the guy, but there is no one else in that QB class that I am a fan of. We have what? Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ritter, Malik Willis. It is not a strong class. I think the only reason Pickett was drafted as high as he was is because he was the best quarterback in the class, but that was just a bad class in general. I don't think he's going to be the QB of the future.
And he was a Pittsburgh kid, right?
Yeah, he was from Pitt. I think that the Steelers are going to be looking for a quarterback in not too long. But, I'm always happy when guys prove me wrong in that way. I want guys to succeed. The better players we have in the NFL, the better a product it is and the more fun it is to watch. So anytime I say I think a guy's going to be bad, it is my opinion, but I really hope I'm wrong.
Of course, we want to see greatness, right? And I want to see Kenny Pickett in that Ravens game, which I think the second last game of the year last year, when he really just had some moxie and was perfect Steeler quarterback, right? That's the kind of scrappy ingenuity that we like to see. The fake slides that he pioneered, changed the rules back in Pittsburgh. But
Yeah.
let's why don't we take it over to Bookie Bob's betting corner here and look at our bets. So we were both successful last week on our bets. You had one single bet for $10 on your Detroit Football Lions, which cashed you $21, and I had two bets of $5 split across, which both cashed, giving me $14.55 profit. So for those of you keeping score at home, we started with $100 each at the beginning of the year to do with what we like and what we please. And so Drew is sitting at $121 and I'm sitting at $114.55 as a result of the Eagles covering the spread and CMC and Debo getting enough rushing and receiving yards against my Steelers. So What are your picks heading into week 2, Drew?
So, again, I like to kind of arrow in or focus in on one bet, one option out there that I really like, one value play that I really like. Last week, I loved the Lions value. I thought they would put up a good matchup. It was paying out basically over plus 200, so it was a bet I really liked. It obviously hit. I'm happy about that. But this week, I think I found a bet that might be even better. And Rob, I think you agree with me on this pick. It is Christian McCaffrey and Puka Nakua, the basically Cooper Cup stand-in for the Rams, to go for over 200 rushing and receiving yards combined. That means that Christian McCaffrey's rushing and receiving plus Puka Nakua's rushing and receiving just have to exceed 200. You look at it last week, Puka Nakua had 119 yards, and Christian McCaffrey had 161 yards, I believe. So they would have absolutely blown that out of the water last week. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game between these two teams, and I love McCaffrey in that offense. I'm putting $10 down on that because I think that's a great value. I believe it's plus 300. So
plus 350.
Plus 350.
You're getting
I'm sorry.
That.
So at $10, I'm getting a profit of $35 if that hits. I am taking that any day of the week. That's great value in my opinion.
It is great value, which is why I'm also taking it. I'm not throwing 10, I'm throwing $2 on it because I'm a degenerate and I like to spread my money around and get a couple of irons in the fire, so to speak. So in addition to that same bet for $2 at $3.50, I'm throwing $5 on another prop bet, which is Tyreek and Jalen Waddle to have a combined 200 plus receiving yards against the Patriots. And that's at plus 200. So again, that bet at plus 200 is Tyreek and Waddle to have a combined 200 plus receiving yards for $5. For me, this seems like easy money. Tyreek had 200 plus himself last week. Waddle had 75, so this would have smashed last week. The Patriots do not scare me. That looks like a dangerous offense. They're going to be putting up points. They are on the road, but it's not quite winter in Foxborough, so that doesn't scare me either. And in addition, I love this game because for those of you that were watching our preseason, I have the Commanders over and the Broncos under, and they are squaring off this week. And so I am taking for $3 the Commanders with the spread. So that's plus 3.5 at minus 110. So I think the football team keeps this game close with their defense. The Broncos offense does not scare me. It is in Mile High, so this is a road game for the football team. But I think they can keep it within a field goal, if not outright win it. And so those are my three bets. We got $3 on the Commanders to cover the spread at plus 3.5. That's minus 110. We have $5 on Tyreek and Waddle plus 200 at plus 200. And then that same CMC Puka bet plus 200 for $2 at plus 350.
Yeah, I obviously I love the CMC Puka Nakua bet because I made the same bet. I'll be honest, not the biggest fan of your other two bets. Obviously, Tyreek Hill was an absolute fantasy NFL like god last week, but Bill Belichick keeps guys like that in check. That's what he's always done. That's been the Patriots' calling card, and the Patriots looked very good against what should have been an extremely talented and adept Eagles offense last week. I liked their defense, which is, I saw the bet. I get making it because Tyreek Hill is the kind of receiver that can just blow the top off and get 60, 70 yards in the snap of your fingers. And then it makes the bet a lot easier to hit on. But to me, that's what you're betting on is one big Tyreek Hill play. And Bill Belichick tends to prevent those type of plays. I don't mind the Commanders pick. That's really, I'm a bit more on board with the Broncos. I think they'll be able to turn it around somewhat. And I do also like the football team, but seeing them last week struggle to beat the Cardinals has me a little worried about them. But I don't think it's a bad pick overall, especially because you're a bit more high on the Commanders than I am, even though I think we both like them. And you're significantly lower on the Broncos than I am.
Yeah. And I will say, I did have Giants and Cowboys just money line. But the lines moved so fast that by the time we went to place the bets and prepare this podcast, they had moved too far where I didn't think it was value. So out of that, I kind of dug in a little deeper and found these two in addition to the one we have in common. But I'm feeling confident. I think like if Tyreek gets shut down, then they'll go to Waddle. I just think that offense is going to be unstoppable all year long as Tua can remember why he went into the kitchen. I had him last year, and he did. It was a bit of a tragic ending to the season for him. So let's go for health there and an electric week from the Dolphins.
Yep. Uh, and in future weeks, once we probably get about 4 or 5 weeks into the season, we'll also be doing a little bit of updates on our season long bets. I think 1 week in, it's tough to put those bets on. Obviously, certain bets like your Joe Burrow bet, not looking as hot as it might have been a
But
few
my
weeks
Tony
ago.
Pollard touchdowns 10 plus, that's looking like a shoe-in.
I mean, not if he's never on the field because they're up by 40. But
True.
but yeah,
But
so
that's it for Bookie Bob's betting corner for the week. We appreciate you guys checking in on that.
yeah, so we've been through most of what we want to go through this episode. The one quick announcement we do want to make: next week we will not be having a podcast. We apologize for that. Rob is still going to be working over in Africa. I am going to be working down in Mexico. We just do not have the capability to make a podcast happen, either one of us. We apologize for that. We are going to be back the week following and for every week there on out throughout the rest of the season. So don't go away if you're wondering where it went. We are still going to be posting shorts, though, to our TikTok, to our Instagram, and to our YouTube page where you'll find this. It's at Fourth and Goal 101 on all social medias. As well, this Thursday, tomorrow, if you're listening to this the day that this podcast comes out, I will be streaming on Twitch, doing a watch along of the game. And then after I'm back from vacation, every Thursday, Sunday, and Monday primetime game, I will be streaming. And once Rob's back from his trip to Mexico, he will be joining me on many of those streams. So please tune into those. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're trying to build a community there and grow our channels. So please follow, subscribe to all our socials. Really helps us out. And leave a comment on this video with your thoughts on week 1 and what your expectations are for week 2. Anything else you want to say, Rob?
Football's back, baby. Let's go. Let's go.
Football is back. So with that, we will see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you for tuning in, and see you later.